Hello all, J-Dude here, back with another episode of the Jam & Dude Show. Thank you all for tuning in. Did a little something new this time because for the first time I've actually gotten a little bit of some pre-release from an episode that will be released the day that I release this video. A brand new symphonic prog rock band called Circle of Illusion. And they have a new symphonic opera called Jeramias, Foreshadow of Forgotten Realms. I've just given this my 5-spin test, and that's something that I feel should be done with every album, because even if you don't like something right away, I do feel like it deserves, somebody put a lot of work into that. So you should give it at least 5 spins before you give up on it. And I have to say that I'm a lot of times a little bit back and forth on symphonic prog rock, because as most of you know, some of it can be so theatrical and so over the top that it can get into those cliched moments where you're just not sure if you can really take it seriously or not. Even one of my favorites from the genre, Arion, I own Inside the Electric Castle and The Human Equation and The Dream Sequencer. I love those albums, but there can be moments when you're like, this is getting a little bit too cheesy. I've heard other bands from this genre, and that's what I often find, is that they kind of overplay it. It's almost overly melodramatic. And I was surprised. Now, I listened to this album before I saw the band, so with no imagery whatsoever, I just listened to the music. And I was skeptical, because I was really worried that this was going to be another one of those symphonic prog rock bands that just, where they can be like Arion's Binary album, which I really didn't care for very much. Just really too much cheese whiz. But getting directly to this album, I have to say that right out of the gate, I was really impressed. This album, they say, was 4 years in the making, and the heart and soul of this project really comes through in the music and in the production. I was waiting for it to go. I was waiting for it to jump the shark at any moment. And I just kept getting more and more into it as the album kept progressing. The album opens with an overture, followed by a good setup in a trilogy of songs, The Beginning, The Run, and The Memory Returns. This really begins to ramp up the story, which I wasn't able to follow very well yet. I'm going to have to get my hands on a lyric sheet, because this album has sufficiently piqued my interest so as to want to know more about the storyline. So after 5 spins, I was really just trying to focus on the scope of the music. But then right about tracks 6, 7, and 8, Closing Doors, New Age, and Continuum, this album really took me in directions that that was the moment when I said, this album to me is transcending everything else that's in the symphonic prog rock genre right now. And I was sitting there in a way just kind of giggling to myself, as I usually do when I'm getting blindsided by something that I wasn't expecting. Because what you're getting here is such an eclectic mix that I'm not really used to. There's a whole different inlay of influences in here that I'm not used to hearing from this genre. We have opera, classical, symphonic, but what we get underneath all of that and thrown into the blender from time to time is we're getting some jazz, a little bit of fusion. I even got a couple of sections where I was like, is that disco? But not in a bad way. it's not like there was a disco song. You just hear this small section where it was like waka chicka, and then it would just drop. And especially in track 7, New Age, I remember there being one moment where there's a short, small section that almost becomes electronica, and then it just drops into a beat that is just not just a skull-crushing riff, and the lead singer is doing this staccato thing that almost reminds you of Disturbed, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. All in all, this is not a hodgepodge or a mishmash. This is really excellent symphonic prog rock that never gets overly cheesy and doesn't overstay its welcome when it gets some eclectic mixes going on. There are 3 lead singers that tell the main story, 2 female, 1 male. The male is Jeremy. I haven't figured out exactly what the storyline is yet, but I remember that I was being taken in by the vocals and the way that they played off one another. I thought that the entire album was so well written, and I just was continually impressed as the album went along as to the different influences and the repeating themes that kept coming back and really kept you in interest of what was coming next. Track 9 dropped things down a little bit after like I said, the first 3 main tracks. There's the overture, and then there's 3 main tracks that really set up the story. Then I feel like through the middle of the album, it really solidified itself. Then it drops down a little bit with track 9 and Sarah's Dream. If there is a cheesy moment on the album, I have to say that this is that portion where you can kind of waver a little bit. But then any doubts you may have down the stretch completely flip around with track 10 and the 13th Floor, which is just probably my highlight of the whole album, because it's this madness and insanity. It's just incredible because there's so many things going on inside of it all at once. If this album had a moment that was a little bit like Pink Floyd's The Trial, this is it, the 13th Floor. And I was just really loving every second of it. It ends on an epic called Nightmare, which even after 5 listens, I have not fully processed yet. But by the time I got to the end of the album, it definitely left me wanting more. At the end of the day, I have to say that if you're a fan of bands like Arion, this to me is I saw somebody describe this album as Arion on steroids, and I tend to agree. As much as I love Arion, he really needs to trim the fat from time to time, I think, because he has so many great moments and then moments where I just go, Arjun, what did you do that for? But I never felt that, really, going through the story of Jeramias. Everything felt like it belonged. Even the one track that I thought maybe just hovered around cheesy a little bit, I thought it was necessary for what was going on in the story, because things had either been really heavy or really insane or really deep, and this just got a kind of a cool breathe down period, so it really fit within the scope of the album. And so even where that song belonged in the scope of the story, I felt was really well played and really well done. So the dude abides, and I really got to give this one a thumbs up. It's just released today. I'm going to give you a link to their website at the bottom of the screen there. And my associate, my son, and my assistant producer, he will go ahead and make sure that you can see some album art or something flying across here. But definitely a thumbs up album. We really hope to be seeing more from Circle of Illusion. If you're a fan of Arion or even Trans-Siberian Orchestra, I would say that the songwriting is on a level that is as good or better than Trans-Siberian Orchestra. and I would put it at that level. So if you're a fan of that type of music, that type of symphonic prog metal, definitely check out Circle of Illusion and their debut album, Jeramias. Got another rant coming up pretty soon. We had some responses to the Galactic Cowboys where people were kind of bad-mouthing grunge. I want to try and post maybe a little bit more of a balanced report on grunge from somebody who was actually there. So until next time, go Seahawks, and we'll see you next time on the Jammin' Dude Show. Well, you're the Aryan fan, so you know the type of cheesy moments that I'm talking about. If you want to, like, there's that love song from Human Equation. When I talk about the cheesy moments of Aryan, splice in just a small part of that, like, really bad, cheesy love song on the Human Equation. You know what I'm talking about. Just put in a little splice of it. I think that'd be really funny. I mean, even if it's just like, because I know that there's one line in there, especially that's horrible. Although you've probably listened to the album more than I have, but find something I think it'd be funny.